Hi, good afternoon. I am here delivering, call it a presentation, call it a lecture. I want to talk about some of the issues which are concerned with implementing circular business models or the circular economy. I think the video is going to last about 25 to 30 minutes. So let's see how it goes, and I'm going to share presentation slides, and that should be helpful if I find the right presentation. Lecture one. Here it is. I think I'm gonna find. That's it. So I really hope at this point that you'll be able to see the presentation. And so just well, I want you to contextualize this lecture. Uh, so what we're talking about is I want to connect to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As you can see, there are 17 there on the screen, and I'm particularly interested in achieving responsible consumption and production, and also the implementation of sustainable cities. And really, that's the topic that we're going to go through. Let me blow it up a little bit. So I want to talk about the key constraints of circular economic business model. So as you implement them, this is on behalf of the Center of Research in Just Transitions, of which I may say a couple of words afterwards. And I'm Dr. Maurizio Catulli, and I'm really interested in circular business models. So that's our focus today. So I want to understand basic understanding, so circular economy and circular business models. But then, because this is not really a super new topic, I want to try to explore the understanding or achieve an understanding of the major issues encountered when designing and implementing circular business models. So that's what the objective of this lecture is. So really, one of the important aspects of the circular economy is the idea of valorizing waste or valorizing surplus. So waste in a linear economy, as we were, you may have some waste or surplus in your production line or in your consumption processes, and they go into the sorry. So, okay. They may go in landscape and then they're going to be wasted. One main value of the circular economy is that you should recover the waste and valorize it, i.e., reuse it, and that's what it is. It's called waste valorization. And I very often use the word waste, but I perhaps it's better to use something like residual materials or valorized waste. So let's get the first lawsuits by using the term VW, which is, of course, copyrighted. But I like to put it like that, valorized waste, something that is not waste any longer because it's been valorized. So apart from the fact that as you valorize waste, you reduce the waste that ends up in landfill and in the environment. There are other issues, which is the opportunity of the circular economy is that actually there are lots of money in it. There is a lot of money in it. Like according to a EU policy document, we are talking about 1,800 billion in the EU and 4.5 trillion in the global economy by the end of 2030. So what I want to put across here is that the circular economy is actually a business opportunity that organizations can tap into. So that's something that I would like to share with students and managers alike and policymakers. It's not something that you can let go. From the circular economy, we may introduce the concept of circular business models. What is a circular business model? Well, what is a business model, first of all? The business model is the way you design and structure your business from the point of view of where you get the resources, also how you get to your market, how do you market your services, in other words, how you get known to the market, and also what is the basic competitive strategy. Just some example. You may be someone in the food business, and so you open a restaurant, and you get people to come to your restaurant, and you feed them. However, what you can do, you can also like Just Eat using a platform model. So someone go on the website, and that enables them to order from an Indian restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, and then the food is delivered. So that's another business model where Just Eat, instead of competing by opening a restaurant, which could be as well a possibility, they do something else, which is basically, like market and sell through an online platform, and then they contact restaurants to do their deliveries. So that's an example of the business model. And really, what the business model will include is what companies sell, what customers they go to. For example, if it's business or when they go directly to consumers, how do they reach them? What is their distribution, supply networks, and where do they get their resources, and so on and so forth. You may also embrace the type of technologies that they can implement. But the important thing is a business model is something that you can play with. You can design it in a different way by, make sure that the components are distributed in the right way. And Boken, 2014, has done a fantastic job of looking at circular business models and classify them in archetypes. So what you see here, you've got different types, and you can see there are some links underneath that I encourage you to click in your own time. But for example, if you consider a product as a service model, that is where instead of selling a product, you deliver it as a service. So an example is a car club or like a tool library, where really instead of selling the product, the customer pays a fee to access the product for a given time, such as a car club. But then you got life extension models where you actually try to retain the functionality of the product. You may have platform or sharing models. So that's where imagine a business model such as car ride sharing. So ride sharing is when you go on a website, you see that there is someone driving from A to B, so from Stevenage to Watford, and you sign up. So that person that is already driving picks you up, and you may perhaps share some of the cost of the fuel. Similarly, if you look at, for example, the source model, this is where the raw materials are recovered at the end of life cycle. So that's the example of fish and chips restaurants or other restaurants where you might recover the oil, frying oil, and perhaps you can convert it to fuel. So it's very important that in your own time you try to be familiar with this type of business model archetypes, especially if you've got to do some sort of coursework. So I just wanted to give you an example of a resource business model, which is Abbe Steel. So this is from my own experience. And Abbe Steel is a company that what they do, they did recover some steel from various car manufacturers. For example, a manufacturer such as Nissan, who may waste some steel because they got to press some steel, and so what they do, in order to make an opening for the window, they then have a section of steel that may be resmelted. But so in this particular idea, instead of smelting the steel that was left, we will recover it, and we would reuse it as it was. And some examples is a very small section of steel could have been used to manufacture ironing board. In this case, for example, is the head of the ironing board, which is converted from the steel, which is reused. Some steel, which again they use without doing any other processing than just perhaps pressing, would be converted in filing cabinet. Small section of that. That's really, sorry, I got some duplication, just ignore that. So that was a very interesting business model, but in the managing of this, in which I was directly involved, we did come across some stumbling blocks, some issues in implementing it, and that was something that, like a learning, since it was a research project, we had some learning outcomes, and those are the fact that steel in itself is a commodity, so there's a fluctuation on the price of it, and also there were logistics costs. So if you recover the steel from that facility, then you got to move it across between places, and that cost. And also there is some environmental impact, so carbon, basically exhaust from vehicles. So perhaps the advantages from reducing waste is cancelled out by emissions. Then, there is an unpredictability factor. So, for example, the company like Nissan weren't wasting any steel, and therefore Abe Steel, we will not be able to get it, and therefore the clients of Abe Steel then would be left waiting in the lounge without any possibility of getting it. And really, what happened is Abe Steel actually would buy fresh steel, and that means that it would be too costly, and so that would mean that the company that tries to implement a circular economy model could incur a financial impact, as in buying fresh steel. Those are possible strategies, and I would say that I want to deal with them in detail in the next lecture, but you can see something there like extensive use of digital resources may be a remedy to address that. And from that, you got to generalize. So from the literature, you can get more sort of benefits versus limitations of the circular economy. As you can see, you can have cost reductions, you can assure the security of supply, you manage the waste and you valorize, so you extract more value from the materials, and you reduce the resource consumption. However, there may be big problems, such as I was saying earlier, you got logistics costs and also associated environmental impact. You got to you basically need the competence and resources, and you may have problems with reprocessing. So in other words, you may have to press the material. In our case, it was pressing the steel, but in some cases you got to do quite a lot of reprocessing, and that could erode the cost reduction. And then there is unpredictability, which can be fatal because you are waiting for raw materials and they don't come, and so your company could potentially go out of business. Potentially quality issues. For example, carbon fiber has been used already, and it becomes more brittle, and therefore the features of it are not as good as they would be. There are also some unintended consequences, because one of the materials that is often reused is plastics. So there is a market for recycled plastics, but what it has been found is that plastics, when recycled, they can deliver a lot of microplastics, which can be released in the environment. So the paradox there is they've got a system that ideally will reduce waste, like plastics going into the environment. However, the process of recycling itself could potentially increment more and more pollution. So that's an unintended consequence. So one of the concepts that I would like to introduce in terms of implementing the circular economy is industrial ecology. The circular economy is not new. It has been going on for some time. And the concept of industrial ecology used to exist before the circular economy. So industrial ecology, you've got an example there. So can you see how Velcro might have been inspired by sea urchin, which have been or that's probably a plant, but it's the same concept, some spikes that interlocks. So it's basically a new approach, or perhaps it was new, to industrial design which basically sparks some sustainable manufacturing strategy. And it's based on what is called biomimicry, so imitating life. So that's why it's called ecology, because ecology is about plants and animals living together, sharing their environment. And so it's about copying really what nature does. So that's what power the circular economy. That is, as you can see, a slide designed from Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And that is a fantastic one, like everything that Ellen MacArthur Foundation does. What it shows you the various flows of material in the circular economy. So, for example, you can look at collection from the user, and you can circulate and send the products back to parts manufacturers, to product manufacturers, service providers. So what's important here is that the flow of materials and energy doesn't go necessarily to one only of the initiators, but they may actually go to multiple levels. So the materials are recovered and reused at various levels. So I want to add to that, and I want to really look at how some of the problems arise, and also that tell us how you could potentially resolve them. So as you can see, the waste hierarchy. So that's the how important and how invasive as. So in other words, some waste need to be avoided, but if you can avoid it, you can regenerate, you can recycle the waste, you can remanufacture the products that are wasted. So that's what we mean by the waste hierarchy. There you go, retain the value, networking for sourcing, so network with other companies in order to source the waste. Then we go waste valorization processes, and that's a first stumbling block, because to valorize waste, you need to go through some processes that may include, for example, waste separation, waste segregation, and then you got some processing. And the company cannot necessarily do all of that. And so that's where you might need some specialist companies that are specialized just in processing the waste. The other stumbling block is where data is missing. So you need data to be able to predict how much waste can be valorized, where is it, and also where it is, and also how it is going to be taken to your plant. So it's a data hungry business model. The same as I said earlier, logistics. So that's an important component. So in the drawing that you saw from Ellen MacArthur, it shows you all the various circular loops. But one important aspect is that these circular loops are about transporting materials around, and therefore there is a need for logistics, which in turn produce consumption of fuel and emissions of carbon. Then we got circulation and prevention and pollution and waste. Now that is quite a problem, because if you are recovering a material such as steel from a manufacturer, In turn, what happens is that the manufacturer may implement just-in-time systems and processes in order to reduce this waste. So as you are waiting for surplus steel or plastics or any other material that comes to you for you to reuse it, maybe that material is not available because your supplier of waste has become more efficient. So that's a big problem with the circular economy, which, as I said earlier, sometimes may be fatal. I just want to talk about industrial symbiosis, which is a corollary of the industrial ecology. In ecology, so you've got plants and animals living together. Sometimes you got something which is called a symbiosis, where animals and plants and animals collaborate in a way that becomes really symbiosis. There are many examples. There are fish that attach themselves to big sharks, and so they go around and then they help by recovering some of the food from the shark. Also, we got symbiosis, symbionts in our guts. You know, there are lots of bacteria and animals inside our gut that help us to digest. So, industrial symbiosis is similar. That's where two companies, a company that wastes materials and a company that reuse the waste, they actually become interlocked and they collaborate by passing each other some waste. And so that enabled them to optimize energy flows in the economy. Similarly to what happens actually in ecosystems. So it's an imitation in nature. And that's industrial symbiosis is something that really is important for the circular economy, for the implementation. But the important thing is that the symbiosis is about relationships. So it's about creating a linkage between the two bodies, in this case companies, that are collaborating together. They got to have a relationship which features communications and exchanges. Without that relationship, the industrial symbiosis cannot take place. So what are the conclusions? What we saw in this short lecture is that yes, the circular economy is a major opportunity, and playing with circular business models is really a big deal. Whole businesses like Just Eat, as I said earlier, have been generated from that. But there are a lot of problems, stumbling blocks, such as if you design your business model based on recovering waste from other organizations, then you need to find a way to secure your supply of surplus or waste. And so what that means is that the circular business model requires specific specialist management practices. So what are they? We will find in the next section. So if you go on the other link, I got the second part of this lecture where I explain how and in what way these problems, this limitation of the circular economy can be addressed. Be free to contact me if you got questions or suggestions. I put my mail there, as you can see, for Center of Research in Just Transitions. Can you please visit my website, or our website, because we are a CIC. If you want more of this work done, you can donate to our website if you want, and please subscribe to this channel. Let me switch setting. Yeah, so you can see me again. So this is the first part of a two-bit lectures. I've done that because YouTube limits the amount of, or rather, it's better to have very short and sharp lecture. So, so you please go on the next one and see the conclusion. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it and also that you found it useful. Thank you.